Well, hello. Every gal needs a cowboy hat.
Scanning the room, you look for a familiar face. Everyone is a stranger. Your heart's racing, you feel nauseous. New plan. You meet 4 new people. Okay, 3. 2? You can handle 2. And then you think, I hate this. This just feels so fake. And before you talk to even 1 new person, you're looking for the nearest exit.
Okay. Crazy. Yo, who invited this chick?
My heart races when I walk into a room full of strangers too. Except it's not anxiety, it's excitement. I'm not thinking networking quota. I'm thinking, look at all these stories. And I get so pumped about talking to people that I don't know.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Hello. Hello there, everyone. Welcome. I was a little bit, oh my God, Mike is muted. Do not want that to happen. Welcome, everyone. Today, we are definitely going to be talking about stories, the power of stories. And as you know, I do a lot of work in the area of manufacturing, and particularly in plastic injection molding. And a lot of people think in those areas that there aren't stories to share. But I disagree, and that's where I come in. I talk about my 3-step process where you can embrace curiosity and you can sign up, suit up, and show up. Because that's where the magic happens, when you decide to show up and share your stories. And today we have a very special guest. This is a guest that I met when I heard him speak. And, you know, being the curious person that I am, I also had to go up and introduce myself and do a selfie with him. So I am going to just bring him on screen. Let's get this party started, Ron.
Hello.
Ron Tite.
Is this? Hello. Wouldn't it be horrible if you had like the guests who just like didn't know, like, what are we on? Are we? Hello? What?
I think that probably has happened a few times online.
I bet. Hi, everybody out there. How are you? Hey, Gail. Nice to see you.
Great to see you too. Now I better do this because I'm going to just fix this up while, let's go. Let's get I think I have to put that up. There we go. My GailNow logo, because you know, got to be on brand. I see you have your
yeah, of course.
Church+State. So
as you can, yeah.
You're over.
I could also
You're there. Ta-da! Now.
What? No.
And that'll be the question we will talk about. Before we get underway, I do want to let's go back to how we started. And a lot of people in the manufacturing world may not know you yet in my world, but we're going to see by some of the comments. And if they don't know you, I know some of the people that may be tuning in maybe even want to book you, because I know I can vouch for you. I have heard you speak. You are amazing. Let me just go here and find
that's very kind of you.
Let me put this up and we'll just then we'll talk about this, because this is how we've met.
Whoa. Hi, everybody. This is my forehead. There you go. Nice to see you, bright, shiny forehead. And some lovely people in those pictures with us. Sarah Wells, Neen James. Yeah,
me,
awesome
and Natasha. Natasha Vanderbroek, who worked.
And Natasha?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that goes back to, and I thought it was 2018. It was actually 2016 when we first met in Windsor.
Oh, geez, I was 26. I was 26 years old.
Yes, we were just so young. And I went up and said, hey, can I get a selfie with you? And that's when I knew we were going to be, I think, great friends, because you like to have fun, do selfies, and show up. And that was before I even knew I was going to be having a show called Show Up.
Yeah.
So that's how we met. Then we went to I went to Heroic Public Speaking because of you as well. So kudos to you for that. And I appreciate, because that was pretty life-changing for me to go there.
They're pretty amazing people.
Mm-hmm. What would you say? Let's just talk about that in the world of public speaking. What do you think has been something that that has helped you in terms of your public speaking career and attending something like Heroic Public Speaking, what's been, if you were offering a tip to someone who says, oh, I don't like public speaking?
Well, I think it's fine if you don't like public speaking. I wouldn't advise you go into the career. But I mean, I love it because it kind of brings together everything that interests and passions and expertise and curiosity and all those types of things. So it allows me to, I bring in the fact, great storytelling. I grew up as my mom's family was kind of Quebecois and Italian. So a lot of hand talking, great storytellers. And then I spent 20 years as a comedian. So I can bring that kind of stage presence and humor, which sets, I'm not hired to be a comedian, but humor helps. Well, I guess maybe this is one of the points that's really interesting about it. Here's what humor allows you to do. I think people miscategorize humor or qualify humor in the speaking world. And a lot of people think like, oh, you just got to entertain people because they have fun. Sure, but you're not hired to entertain people. If they wanted a pure comedian for an after dinner speaker, they could do that. Why comedy is really, really important in speaking is not because of the punchline, but because of what follows the punchline. So you can set them up with laughter, but you're really there to deliver a strategic message about changing behavior. And you need them to laugh for a couple of reasons. One, it kind of gets their guard down. Secondly, it puts them in a better mood. But most importantly, most people that you go in to speak, let's say in the manufacturing sector, and somebody's got 20 plus years of experience, and you go, you need to change the technology and the floor of your warehouse. And they go, nope. They were like, they don't want to, I've been in, they go, I don't know. I've been in this business 20 some odd years. And they only think they think there's only one way to see that issue, solution, problem, whatever. There's only one way to look at it. And they refuse to look at it another way. What comedy does is you start by, if you can get them to laugh, you're proving to them that they can actually see that situation from a different angle. Because the humorous angle is just looking at something from a completely different perspective. And so if they laugh, you go, haha, see? You just proved to yourself that you can see this issue from this angle. Now that you're silent, I'm going to show it to you from this angle. And this is the important angle, and this is the strategic angle, and this is the changing behavior angle, whatever that is. So I think that's really why comedy is really important. It's why comedy is so important in society, because it is the first step to progressive change. So if I have a political belief or a belief about some injustice or human rights or whatever, if I can get somebody to laugh about this really serious issue, I'm forcing them to look at it from a completely different perspective. And hopefully I can then get them to see it from a more progressive perspective.
I love that, of how you position the importance of humor. And one of the things, as you were talking about that, I was thinking a lot of times, especially in manufacturing, because I've heard people sometimes when they're just telling a story, something that actually happened, that can have humor to it. And I know my son, I've learned a lot from my son, who's now 19. And he said, Mom, sometimes you're like, no, you're funny. Like when you're really not trying, you're just like yourself.
We're laughing at you, Mom. We're laughing at you.
Yes. His friends do laugh at me. My son actually did create that intro video. And at first he says, I don't know, Mom. I don't know. It might be a bit mean. I watched it. I found it hilarious because I thought, you're poking fun at me, which is because he always teased me about my my speaker reel sometimes, right? Because,
right.
Yeah, it is. It's the impact of humor. So yes, you are definitely bring that to the table. Let's, we have a few comments here. So I want to go to our studio audience, and then I want to come back and talk about, they're here. They're all watching. We had lots of eyes.
Everyone gets a grand am today.
Okay. So we have, Inger's in the audience saying, woohoo, this is going to be awesome. I have kind of set you up. There's been a few posts I've done on a few platforms, right. No pressure though, right?
Well, yeah, that's right. This better not suck.
Katie McDermott. Now, Katie is someone who brings so much humor into manufacturing just by being herself. So, Katie, thank you for being here. She's She's wonderful. So we have a bit of network. I'm going to skip over that. And we actually have, Christina Harrington, who has a new podcast out talking about manufacturing. Looking forward to listening. Yes.
Nice.
Dan Bigger is he is a networking king. He is all over in manufacturing. He actually started USA Manufacturing Hour, which is on a Twitter chat. And here's someone we both know, Amanda Crowell.
Hey,
Dr.
Amanda.
Truly
How are
amazing
you?
speaker. Yes. And I know Amanda has a new podcast doing amazing work. So for some of you listening today, we might slide into a few little, heroic public speaking speaker stories. Yeah. We have, some more networking back and forth. Okay, so let's go to the question of the day, which is now.
Gemini, 1970. Pronouns are he, him. No? Okay, sorry, I interrupted you.
That's okay.
You're like, I'm the host here. Let me do the thing I need to do.
No, it's okay. Ron, this is what makes you so wonderful and adorable. And I don't mean that in a creepy way. A little creepy, maybe just a titch. Because I do stalk you and your children on Instagram because they're so adorable. But so that may be a little bit. My son says, "Mom, stop doing and telling me that." So yes, I am a stalker on social media for especially cute kids because I love kids. Tell me about your work right now on Now What? Over to you.
Well, really, it came down to, I was pre-COVID was very busy with speaking. I think in 2019 I did about 75 or 72 speeches that year or something, and then COVID hit and it was like boom, things changed obviously for everybody, and I just continued to speak. I did I think about 55 in 2020, virtual, obviously, but I was really engaging more in conversations with executives about what they were doing, and I did some research around what people thought the most, the biggest management challenge was through the early stages of the pandemic. I own an agency, and we're constantly talking with clients about how to best, grow their businesses. And so it was through all these conversations, and what I was getting from executives was that there were such big, serious issues on the table. And that, look at it, what executives have to deal with now. They have to deal with whether the hell they're going from a hybrid thing to an in-office thing to a remote thing. They've got supply chain issues that are really affecting how they deliver goods. We've got hyperinflation going through the roof. We've got a lack of housing supply. We have a provincial election in Ontario. We have massive political issues going on in the US. We have big systemic human rights injustices that have taken place and been uncovered over the pandemic, be it Black Lives Matter, be it Truth and Reconciliation. We've got gender equality, which is always on the table. We've got the environment, which continues to sink down. So there's, we keep saying, we're divided. It's like all these massive, massive things. And we also, at the core of it, we have this huge paradox, something that I'm called the P3, which is the post-pandemic paradox, which is they've got all these contradictions at play. And one of the biggest ones for business leaders is business the problem or is business the solution? So we now have these massive things to take care of. And is business getting in the way of those things, i.e., we've got billionaires who are just spending money to buy Twitter or to go to space? Is that the problem? We've got billionaires who are using, stock options from one company to fund things in another, like fund acquisitions and others. We've got the Pope telling every single business category, shame on you, stop charging for vaccines, cancel debt, give away food. We've got average consumers who are saying, hey, if capitalism is so great, why does it need to be saved by socialism once a decade? So we've got these massive issues on business and people going, I don't know, is our entire system broken? Or is as our what I firmly believe our clients at the ICD said, which is the future of our country will be made in its boardrooms, in that business can solve problems faster and better than government can. And that's not an anti-government message. That is an understanding and an acknowledgement that government is complex with really diverse stakeholders. I really pity those who are in government right now. It's a lose-lose situation. So with all of that, leaders are kind of going, now what? Like, now what? Like, what is next? And what am I supposed to do? What's the next step I'm supposed to take? Because I don't want to do that and I mess up my lighting. Look at that. It's like, hey, you want to see jaundice? There you go. Look at that. Jaundice, instant jaundice.
I was wondering, I didn't know the light. I was like, I wonder what's happening there. But
Yeah, I know. It's a thing. So they're saying, now what? But I think the core realization here is that people want to do the right thing. Business leaders want to do the right thing. They're just not exactly sure what the right thing is. And so I'm just saying, look, you want your right thing? The one thing to focus on growth. That's it. Just focus on growth, because we know that growth can be personal growth. So we as people need to try new things, do new things. So we need to invest in personal growth. That's where it starts. Now, if we as leaders and business professionals start to do things differently on a personal level, well, now suddenly our teams start to grow. And as our teams start to grow, organizations starts to grow. And as organizations grow, that's when communities grow. When we have successful businesses, successful business can drive social change. And so it's, Queen's University, the Smith Business School, their campaign out right now is simply called "This is Business Now." And I love it. I love it because that one simple line was done by Karen Howe. And the one simple line is exactly what we all need to think. This is business now. It's doing all those things. It is growing the business in new and interesting ways. It is putting purpose before profit. It is having an agenda to solve social issues. This is business now. That's kind of it in a 27-minute wrap up.
Well, and we had a comment, someone said, so it seems that there is a mess, but I think that's where people like yourself and other people that are out there also, working on motivating people and helping to show that there are other ways to get out of this. Because if not, the option is we throw up our hands and say, I give up. And
yeah. Well, that is it, Gail. It's a great point, because they're, you put up the line there, going from recovery to reinvention, because that's what it is, which is a lot of people are copying out. They're just kind of going, can we just go back to remember how we used to do things?
Yeah.
And it's not about going back to recovery. It's about going forward to reinvention. The other thing that you mentioned, which is really important, is the people giving up. So there's been this constant presence of something called the Great Resignation. And I think the line I've used is that, the only thing worse than the Great Resignation is the Great Resignation, because resignation has two meanings. That on one hand, resignation is a reaction to an unfavorable situation. This sucks. I quit. I'm out of here. But the other definition is way more dangerous. The other definition of resignation, if somebody is resigned, that somebody is resigned to just doing the thing they've always done. Those people have given up. So it's not a reaction to an unfavorable situation. It's an acceptance of an unfavorable situation. And that is way worse for your business. It's way worse for your mental health. And I think that's the thing we need to really need to focus on. I think that the data that I saw last week was that like 73% of those people who made a move through the Great Resignation, the pandemic, are still unhappy. So I think that massive upswing is a little bit of a blip for two reasons. One, I think the grass isn't always greener, but I hope that businesses, finally learn from that and like, oh, maybe we need to actually provide a place that people want to work at. Okay, maybe we need to make some changes. So given that that's going to take place, I think the other, definition of resignation is way more important to focus on.
You know what? I love that. And, my curious mind is now going to that idea of, also growth mindset, fixed mindset, which is most people kind of understand that, but how do you put that into your everyday life and into your workplace? Because the fixed mindset is, this is the way it is. We can't do anything, just whatever. It's a mess and leave it be. Or the growth mindset is that let's leave, let's change. And yes, 100%. I think people, like anything, that old saying, you can't go home again. Like, we can't go back. The toothpaste is out of the tube.
Yeah. The band always sucks when it gets back together. It always sucks when it gets back together. You don't want to be that.
Yeah. So, and that's what I find really fascinating. And you've been talking about this for a while, this whole idea of reinvention and, look, a former boss used to say this, and we hear this a lot. It's a bit overused, but that looking around corners. If you just say, this is the way life is going to be.
Yeah.
And, I'm not going to change, dig your heels in. Well, that's not, there's the word progress for a reason. We have to move forward.
Yeah.
So in terms of your other note, and now this goes back to, I want to pull this up, that think, do, say.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that too, because that's another
scrolling. Can we just take a moment to appreciate that animation?
I know
of the scroll.
Because I actually have also, after the scroll, I can do this, and then you can lead off, because I did have someone ask me, what do you mean by think, do, say? And obviously, if you want to hear the whole story in this, you should book Ron and have him come and talk to you.
Or you can buy, it's much cheaper to buy the book or listen to the book, but yeah, you want to kick it up a notch and hire me to speak for. Yeah, I'd recommend that.
So this is the show up with GailNow version of think, do, say. I know, I understand what this means, but I'd like you to maybe explain, because I think there's people definitely listening today that could benefit from this, because especially when it comes to marketing, I'm working in a world with manufacturing. They're very busy. They've got lots on their plate. And then when they start to look at marketing, they look at, do I do traditional? Do I do trade publication? Do I do trade show? Do I do social media? And then if I do social media, should I be on all social media? Then there's my website. So think, do, say.
Yes. My friend Warren Tomlin of EY calls that random acts of digital. Let's just try a bunch of shit out and see what
see what sticks.
See what happens. Which is fine. In some ways, we do need experimentation. So what I found was that I was having those conversations, and I felt that the world of marketing on one hand was getting too random, on the other hand, getting way too complicated, way too complex. This isn't rocket science, people. So how do we deliver an brand operating system or an organizational operating system that works outside, that works inside, that can be applied to sales and marketing, that can be applied to leadership and HR, and that so that we can get everybody around the table, and we get everybody kind of following along. And I thought that a lot of organizations were either going really, really old school, which is like, what's our mission? What's our vision? Which, you know what? Nobody cares what your mission and vision is, because you hired a committee of people to sit around a flip chart, and you had a copywriter do a pass on it, and it's just a bunch of buzzwords that mean nothing to nobody within your organization. And they can recite it at the drop of a hat because you beat it into their head in your onboarding process, but it doesn't mean anything. And nor does anybody actually align their personal actions to delivering against it. It's like, that's what we believe. So it was like, how do we take some aspect of belief? How do we align actions that reinforce that belief? And then how do we talk about it in a way? So that's really what it is. So it's an operating system that you can apply to your organization, independent of whether you're in the middle of a recession, whether you're in the middle of a pandemic, or whether you're in the middle of a bull market. So the think part is really just starts with, what do you fundamentally believe? Don't give me your copywritten mission statement. What do you fundamentally believe in? What is the purpose for your Simon Sinek fans? What is your why? What is it, what we call a brand belief? What do you believe? And that has to go beyond the thing you sell, but be strategically linked to the thing you sell. Now, what a lot of people, when purpose started getting floated around, they were doing that same random thing where they're going, oh, we believe in, what's the latest issue? Black Lives Matter. We believe in Black Lives Matter. What's the latest? It's the environment now. We believe in saving the planet. No, you don't. You make automobiles, or you make, clothing. And I'm not saying you can't. That doesn't mean that automobiles are killing the planet. It doesn't mean that you need to incorporate some of those things, but that's not purpose. That's not strategically linked to the thing that makes you money. And so the think part is the what do you believe? And then the do is connected to the think part with the word so. We believe this, so we do this. This is where we make our money. So we believe that, if you're Airbnb, for example, we believe that people should feel like they belong anywhere. So We allow people to stay in local accommodations and live in the middle of communities when they visit a city. That's their essential due. And then when you get into transformation, it becomes, well, what other things could you do? How else could you grow this business? How else could you transform? You just need to tie it back to the purpose. And then if you believe in something more important beyond the thing you sell, and you live it on a daily basis, you actually align your actions to live up to it, that's worth talking about. But if it's worth talking about, then, our ideas are adopted by how we communicate them. Our passions are adopted by how we communicate them. And let's face it, growth comes from more people sharing your beliefs. If I share your beliefs, I'm going to buy your product. If I share your belief as a leader inside the organization, I'm going to follow you. I'm going to be loyal to you. So there is this growth comes from getting more people on our side. And that happens, that depends on how we communicate it. So let's say it in a memorable way. Let's say it in a compelling way. Let's say it in a relevant way. And let's say it in an authentic way. So that's Think, Do, Say in a nutshell.
Okay. Well, and I love it. It also ties in, you're where I sign up, suit up, and show up, because that's the same thing. It's very similar in that, things have to connect to one another, because if not, I've seen this, the jumping on the bandwagon, it's this. So we're going to put our logo on it, and all of a sudden and then they get into algorithm, and we want to pick up on a trending topic. And yeah. And then
they try and game the system.
Yeah.
And we just saw, and this is on LinkedIn, so people can go check out John Ruffalo, who's a great thinker, and who, given the highs and lows of the stock market over the past couple of weeks, John had such a great point yesterday, and I shared it out from my account as well. But the point was, everyone's talking about this tech bubble. No, this isn't a tech bubble. This is a valuation bubble. This is not, to use the Warren Buffett line, it's when the tide goes out, you begin to see who is swimming naked, right? People are saying, oh, all these businesses lost all this value. Well, they weren't worth that in the first place. So let's stop trying to game the system. Let's stop trying to play the PR game. Let's stop trying to play the short game. Build a business. Build a business with great unit economics that has profitability baked into every single delivery of every single product or service. Let's build it for the long term. And, implement Think, Do, Say, because when you take a really simple approach to that, opposed to saying, how are we going to 10x the revenue, blah, blah, stop it. Build the business. If you're a leader, build loyal employees. That's how we become really successful. Part of the issue with why I wanted to write Think, Do, Say was because I was tired of everybody going, you just need to cut through. It's about making people pay attention to you. Well, yeah, but if you just wanted to make people pay attention to you, well, you would streak naked at a Blue Jays game. If that's all it is, and that's not going to help your business. It's, the old hey, any PR is good PR. No, it's not. No, it's not. If you're not simultaneously building trust for the long run, if you're not doing things that build trust and cut through together, you're not helping yourself. You're not making your sales more efficient over time. You're not making your marketing more effective over time by building trust along the way. And there are just far too many people who are playing this game of how do I cut through and game the system? And I think it's all bullshit. Sorry, can I swear on this
Yes,
show?
you can. You can.
Okay,
This is for adults mostly.
Okay, good.
There's many kids listening. And even if so, that's the other thing. I always find people so worried about swearing, but it's I think there's other things you should be worried about. There's
8-year-olds who are on Paw Patrol going, I follow Ryder, from Paw Patrol. He's a great leader.
Let's go to the studio because I have some more questions I want to come back to, but there's some people here that I want to introduce you to them to you, because let's see, we have a few new people I want to go back. Okay, Brian Forster. Brian just says hi. Brian does some amazing work in manufacturing. He's using video, and he definitely, to quote my friend Damon Festuca, is the red M&M in the bowl of green. He does some really funky out there videos from manufacturing, and they're always fun, and he is definitely showing up. We have some more. Yeah, Dan Baker's here commenting. So, oh, and we have now Brian Gignac is actually, he's going to mention later. He's actually on vacation. He is at 𝑘𝒊𝒕𝒉, one of my clients, and we work closely together on some sales. And he's also an estimator, which is like crazy job.
Brian, go back to vacation. This is so not vacation worthy. You need to be getting a tan.
I think actually, no, I think he would love your stuff because he's a regular to my show. So and we have someone from LA, Cargo Margo. Okay, Cargo Margo, hello, happily tuning in from LA. Welcome. And this is where Dan had said, so you're saying things are a mess. We already responded to that. Yes, they're a mess, but you don't. Now we get to the Katie says messy and full of misconception. Yes.
Yeah.
Amanda says, it's an interesting point. The more resignation leadership, the more resignation stat. Ooh, that is a really good comment. Thanks, Amanda, because
that's why she's a doctor.
Yes, I know. I always said Dr. Amanda. I was like, and then, okay, Dan said, yep, he got let go. And he also has an interesting story because he tracked a lot of his progress when he was looking for another job on LinkedIn and has a whole process around that. We cannot resign ourselves to the status quo. The only constant life is change. Very true. We have Amanda saying random acts of digital. That's funny. Yeah, I'm going to have to use that as well.
That is from Warren Tomlin. That's not my line, but Warren Tomlin, who's a very funny, very smart guy at EY Ottawa.
Okay, Warren Tomlin. I'm going to write that down. But it's like we'll get back to pitch slapping too, because I often credit you with that because that's where I first heard it. I don't know where that actually came from.
Yeah.
Maybe we can find that out. And Katie says, imagine if we never change and things never change. The thought is really sad. Exactly. She did correct it with the little asterisks. And here's the person I want to introduce as well as David Chrysler. I call him the king of process. I'm sure he will have lots to, when I next talk with him, we'll be talking about that. Think, do, say, because he's all about definitely how can you, incorporate process into the work you're doing, and not process for the sake of process, but process that is about what you're talking about. Where is your goal? Where are you going? And what do you want to do beyond only making money? Right. I mean,
yeah, but I think process, Gail, like, if I can go on a tangent here,
yep.
You're in Windsor. I grew up in the 𝑗₍ₐ, Oshawa, Ontario. And so I get the world of car. I was the creative director on Volvo for a decade or so. I get that world. And what I know about car, there's a lot that we can learn from car manufacturing because there's two parts to that process. One is the concept car. And so the concept car is like, hey, look, we're going to try something out. This is ridiculous. It's over the top. And it's never going to go into production. Like this thing is never seeing the light of day, ever, 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 ever. And that's not why they do it. They do it because as they do it and they push the limits of what's possible and even expected, then what ends up happening is they go, oh, you know what? Like this whole thing is not going into production, but this gas cap, that's cool. We can plug that in because the other side of car manufacturing is the assembly line. Now, this is where you make your money. You make your money on the assembly line because it's repeatable behavior. Everybody knows precisely what they're supposed to do and precisely what their job is. And it's repeatable behavior, them doing the same thing over and over and over again. And they guarantee cost. They guarantee quality by doing it over and over and over again. And they deliver a product with slight variations at the end of the assembly line. That's where you make your money. You've stripped out all the inefficiencies from it. So us as people have to think of our tactics in the same way. There's some things that we're going to do that they're concept cars. We're like, I'm trying TikTok out for the first time. Exactly. Do it to do it and then see what you can learn from it. But at some point, and speakers do this all the time, where we go, here I'm going to showcase one wicked example of something that happened by some business or some leader. And if that just happens once, it's freaking useless. It is useless. These moments of magic and stuff, unless those things are operationalized, unless you go to Dan Chrysler and go, how do I put this on my assembly line where it's repeatable behavior, where everybody knows how to do it? It's absolutely useless. So, when we go to clients to talk about, okay, we're going to explore a new platform, that's the kind of approach we'd like to take, which is let's just do it to do it and see what we can learn. And then we'll start to make it more efficient over time. But, I had a client who will go unnamed, or we had a client who will go unnamed. It was a really large national organization who, hired us because of our content chops, and we have a very specific content planning and generation approach, and wanted, all that he wanted so much to go into every single blog post that the CMO did. And I went to him at one point and I said, you're treating every single blog post like it is a $1 million TV spot. You have not produced anything. You haven't produced anything because you're so caught in the weeds of like making everything perfect. What you need to do is get us and your organization cranking on a few things. Let's just establish the process of us generating content. And then we'll make it 2% better, 2% better, 2% better, 2% better. You're trying to make it 100% better every single time. You haven't done anything. And I said, you're going to get fired. We've been working on this a long time and you have nothing to show for it. You're going to get fired. And a month later, he got let go. So that is I think we need to, our goal should be assembly line, but we need to start with some concept cars just to start the process going.
That is a great story. And I'm reminded of, I worked at a company that was amazing, very successful. And my boss, one time we were working on a project, and I always use this line. I say, I'm Scottish. So sometimes I'm worried about, like, we were spending all this time on a project and money. And I didn't see it, like, thinking, how are they going to make money from this? How are they going to? So like, I'm getting stressed. I go to him and I'm like, okay, like, what can we do? How, and me, I'm like, how can I make this better? How could, and he says, sometimes we just do something to test it. Exactly what you said. That's what he said. And I tell you, I learned at this company, he was my greatest mentor. I worked for him for a number of years. And you know what? He was the best mentor, because if he hated that if I even said that to him, like, no, I'm not. But he was. And that's what makes a good mentor, when they almost don't even know they are. They're just doing it. And best lesson, I'm still working through that, because I do agree that sometimes, good is and done is better than perfect, because, and when I'm working with people, especially on social media, getting them to do like even posts or engaging, I have one story, someone took a whole day, wrote this post, and like then they don't post it and it never sees the light of day. And I'm learning now, sometimes I go, you know what? It's good enough. If there's a typo, we'll find it later. Or, Twitter, can't fix it, but LinkedIn, I can go back in and fix it later.
Yeah. Well, there's never been a better time to suck. Like if you go, because if, let's say you go, oh, this, I wrote a blog post or a LinkedIn post that it wasn't great. Well, then nobody sees it.
Yeah.
Nobody shares it. The algorithm doesn't pick it up. Nobody sees it. What a time to suck. There's never been cheaper to suck. So, I think people who kind of crank on stuff and then delete, they delete comments or they delete posts. I think, like, you know what? Just kind of go, oh, maybe I suck there, and be a little bit more authentic about it.
I'm laughing because that's how, when I got into TikTok, it was just to test it out. Like, I decided I'm just going to jump in and, and I didn't put it really as part of like my brand for my business, but I've learned the most. And it's surprising. I'm outplaced. People go, oh, I see you on TikTok. I love your TikToks. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. It's so weird, and I think it's also good to, I'm maybe contradicting myself here a little bit, but, when the book came out and stuff, people, or as I was writing the book, people were like, oh, you need a podcast, why don't you have a podcast? And I said, yeah, I really love the medium. I love I listen to them all the time. And I don't want to do it until I want to do it, until I find something in a unique way. And so some things are kind of, just because I didn't want to, like, I'm going to start a podcast and then it, trail off. Mm-hmm. And so I waited and said, I just want to figure out, I want to do it in a really interesting way, because there are a lot of podcasts that are, let's face it, two dudes talking. And I just said, I'm not doing a two dudes talking podcast, because there are great ones. There are amazing ones out there. And I'm not going to compete against that. I wanted to explore it. And so I waited and waited and then I was like, okay, you know what? I'm doing a 10 episode, really high production, like really, really high production podcast, and hired 3 people to work on it with me, and did a deal with Rogers Frequency Podcast. And I was like, I just want to do 1 season. That's it. I just want to do it to do it. We did 1 season. It's amazing. It's called The Coup. You can available at wherever you get your podcasts. And then COVID hit, and I was like, I don't need to, invest in that right now with everything else going on. And so I walked away from it. That doesn't mean I'm going to not ever go back. But I was like, you know what? I like that 1 season. It's pretty amazing. And I might go back. And if not, I'm cool with that.
I just had Ben Baker on, and that's what he was talking about too. There are different podcasts. There's podcasts that you do, and you do the 2 people talking. Then there's podcasts that are, a featured season. And then there's ones like my personal favorite. I love Hidden Brain. The Hidden Brain one is that's one from Malcolm Gladwell. It was a spinoff kind of from the revision history that I am addicted to. Because it's all about how our brain works and why we think things, and they talk about habits. And so I get charged up about that one. Yeah. And so I think the other thing though that we can take from that is that it is important to, not agonize over every piece of content either. And what you had though with your podcast, that was part of your business plan. And that's where I think that David Kreisler, that's part of a process. Like you decided on a plan and a process. You didn't just say, hey, I'm going to go out and do a podcast for the sake of a podcast. And so I think that's a really good advice for someone that wants to plan it as part of a focused goal for your business.
Excuse me. Yeah. I also know that, and my business partners and my colleagues would certainly second this. But sometimes when it comes to ideas, my eyes are bigger than my stomach, where it's like, hey, I want to do it all. I want to do it all. And the reality is like, I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and a very active business and a very active speaking business. And there's only so much. And I can't do it all. So the podcast was like, I really need a support team in order to make this work.
That's also, I think we're in a place. I also do work locally here with Canadian Mental Health Association. And that's something that's really important also for people to find that balance, because sometimes I do the same. Like I have so many ideas. Like, I think that's why we get along, because I listen to you and I'm like, yes, I want to do all this. And I've really focused in on, my live show is a priority. It's once a week. But I make it so that I don't do a lot of prep. Well, what I do is I listen to podcasts. I do research that I would love doing anyway. So I found a way to prepare without spending time, especially someone like yourself is very busy. So I don't want to do a pre-interview before bringing you on. Like I should know enough about you that I'm going to ask you. And, my background, I was a reporter in a past life. So I get it. It's, and with live shows, the good thing about live shows is, like you said, never better time to talk. If something happens, it happens in live, right? The mic's not off. You have a problem with video, and I'm always ready. If someone misses out, I can slide someone else in or just talk for a bit. Let's go back to the studio audience and see, because we have a fair bit of networking in the comments. I'm not going to bring up all those comments, but I do like to see there's lots of people connecting. So I'm going to see, I know, and there was a LinkedIn user. We have a mystery person that says, yes, you must live what you talk about. I don't know who that is, but I probably do sometimes. They might be over on another platform.
Oh, right.
We have, let's see, we've got quite a bit of chatter going on here.
There's a kitchen party going on.
This is what I love about Katie. What a great title. 2 dudes talking. I wonder if there is a podcast. Someone better grab that. That is actually, now we have, Dave Inger, not following your question. Can you expand? Okay, there was a question. Here we have Inger said, I cringe when I look at my own videos, so I don't look. That's why I asked, why look, David? Okay, I think there was an earlier question. Yeah, I've thought about this. I think I want to go back and listen to some of my shows and work on the tips that I would have learned from heroic public speaking on how to,
Yeah, there's some things. I look back at some old speeches, like, because I save every deck and think like, what was I thinking there? And other times it's like, oh, why don't I? That's important. Why don't I talk about that anymore? And the thing is, you only typically have an hour, and so I don't. Yeah, I sometimes miss some of those it's kind of like singing a hit song again after 20 years, and you're like, I like that song. It's a good song. What I do in every speech is have something called the new two, which is, I don't know how many hours of content I've got, but I let's say I do an hour speech. I always, in every single speech, have 2 minutes that is completely new, that's never been done before. And that's typically because I've read something that week or saw something, and I force myself to integrate that thinking right away. And the reason I do that is kind of concept car, and that, like, I want to see, is there anything there? And, the whole idea of the coup, as an example, came because I was doing something on disruption, and on stage in the moment I said, oh, it wasn't Blockbuster or Netflix taking a Blockbuster wasn't they didn't disrupt the entertainment space. It was a coup, or they didn't disrupt Blockbuster. It was a coup of the entertainment space. And so the next time out, I was like, oh, I wonder if there's like, can we look at anti-establishment music? Like, are there songs that corporate would use to announce them taking over somebody? And so I started searching out the music, and then I found a song called "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised," and I like Gil Scott-Heron. I thought, what a great title for disruption in business. The revolution will not be televised. And then as I started to explore that more, I started to look like, well, what does go on in revolutions, and how do revolutions? And so I just kept playing with it, always a new two. And then it became like, oh, yeah, it is just a coup. So we can actually look at successful and failed political coup d'etats where an insurgent force is more connected to the real needs of the populace, and they storm at midnight and they take the establishment out. And other failed coups are because the establishment gets wind and they internally disrupt themselves, and they kind of align with other people to be more connected to the people who they supposedly serve. And so I think that very notion of looking at a coup is really interesting in business, and it all because it came around because I was invested in that new two.
That's a perfect segue into your curious brain, because I talk about, curiosity, and I always say, like, I'm Chief Curiosity Officer because I have always been curious. And then I started exploring what that was about. That all came about actually thanks to Dr. Amanda as well, and her public speaking, because people would say, like, you're curious, you ask questions. And I know you spoke about this podcast, Greg, like, I don't think I do it that much until people told me, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So just what you were saying, I was following it going, oh yeah, I could see so going down that rabbit hole of like,
totally.
Explore this. And if this means this, where does this go? And also how I actually got into manufacturing, because it wasn't that I woke up one day. It wasn't like one day I said, oh, I'm going to work in manufacturing and marketing. I got into it basically through relationships, but also it really fills my curiosity well, because it's fascinating. Like when you pull back the curtain to look at, now I look at everything differently.
Yeah.
Where did this come from? It didn't just, this bottle, whatever, especially plastics too, because that's such a controversial topic, because people don't really understand. It's not about banning plastics. It's about disposal of plastics.
Right.
Yeah. There's so many more things. So let's talk about curiosity, and how have you, even through reinvention, and maybe give like where you came from and where you are now in terms of, and how you've used curiosity to help push you forward.
Well, it's been the thing that I think displaces fear, where if people, it doesn't really get in the way where you're like, oh, I'm just really curious about that process, or I'm really curious about that experience, and I just want to experience it because I don't know what happens. Growing up, I grew up quite poor, and I remember seeing the movie Meatballs, and saying, what's that all about? Like, people go to a camp? What is that? And I went to a day camp, which, day camps aren't camp, but and I said to my mom, like, oh, I want to go to a camp. And she's like, well, we can't afford to send you to a camp. And I was just so curious about that experience of like, what do you mean you go and you stay there for 6 weeks and you play basketball and you swim in a lake? That's ridiculous to me. And so I just said, okay, well, I want to experience it. I want to go. I don't know. So what do I do? Oh, so I contacted the Ontario Camping Association. I applied as a counselor and they sent my name out to a bunch of camps. And then I had some phone calls and I picked a camp. And I ended up in the Camp Kennebec, which was a predominantly Jewish camp, but it wasn't like an officially Jewish camp. It was just mostly Jews from Montreal. And I land there and someone says something about the Jewish people or something. And I said, oh, are there some Jewish children who attend this camp? This is in pre-camp. And the guy's like, other than you, her, and him, we're all Jews. I was like, what? I had no idea. So, of course, this became not only a wonderful experience from experiencing camp, but it became a significant cultural experience in my life of connecting with really some great friends in the Jewish community. And that opened up a whole other, like, what are you talking about? People who are in the schmata business can afford Ferraris. Would you make a t-shirt? What? And so it just opened everything up. And so by being curious about something and then following through to pursue it, it opened up a whole world that I didn't know existed, prior to that. The very reason I got into comedy was because I always loved the craft of comedy. I had no dreams of being Jerry Seinfeld. I just loved it and wanted to understand it more. Like, what is the method to the madness? What does one do to write a set? And so I was like, man, what do? I'll just become a comedian. Okay, no big deal. And I think when you live that way with curiosity, you have to follow through and deliver on your curiosity. And sometimes you find out like, oh, that's not something you wanted to do. That is horrible. I remember the first time I did a golf tournament as a comedian. And I was really curious. Like, well, that sounds like fun. You go and at the end of the day, they've been playing golf. You tell jokes and everyone's drinking. That'll be a hoot. No, it's horrible. It is the worst for a comedian, especially a comedian who hates golf. It's the worst thing in the world. And so but then you go like, oh, okay, experienced it. Thank you. Check that box. Never again. Never again am I going near that again. So you just, by being more curious, you just get better at whatever it is you do. You round out your experiences in both positive and negative ways. And I think that makes you better, more interesting, and happier.
I do agree it does help overcome fear, because the more and that ties into actually the upcoming talk that I'm working on addresses that issue, how to overcome fear, but also how to develop a new habit. Because the more you try something new, and there's science behind this, that your brain actually, it will crave more, because it sort of clicks into learning, and some things may not ever become easy or fun. But I always say, like, exercise, a lot of times, like lots of people do exercise and things, and not because they love it, but it becomes a habit that they then, they like the results from it as well. And I think that's the other thing, is what is the result you get from curiosity?
Yep. Yeah.
Can you you have to tell the story about how you packed your thing. I'm going to let you deliver that, because that's also how you packed your stuff to go to the camp, because you.
Oh yeah. There's, if you ever want to go like, hey, does this person know anything about camp? Look at how they pack. So most people go to summer camp and they pack a duffel bag, right? A big duffel bag filled with clothes and stuff. I showed up with 2 suitcases, like 2 old school, like zip, like suitcases. And you just like, as I was, walked in, like everybody was like, who's that guy with the suitcases? I wouldn't be surprised if to this day I'm known as like suitcase guy or something. I think that shows you that, that was a 2-second weird feeling of like, oh, I'm fish out of water here.
Well, what I love about that too, when I heard you speak about in the past, is that you said you sort of owned it and said, I'm going to be the suitcase guy. And whereas you could have been embarrassed, you could have slunk away, but sometimes owning it. And that's where it becomes, that's that humor side of things, and where people embrace you. I think, again, why you are so loved, Ron, is that, you tell a story and you can also look at, the humor and what you did or didn't do, or, showing up at a camp with those hard case suitcases.
Well, yeah, but there's a rule in comedy that says you never ignore the reality of the room. So if you're in a comedy club and someone at the back of the room yells, "You suck," everybody heard it. Everybody heard it. And if you don't address it and take back the mic, then it's a shot across the bow of you. And I think it's really funny and really authentic to just own the reality of the room. So, if you show up late for a meeting, you could kind of apologize, like, "I'm really sorry, I'm 5 minutes late, or 6 minutes late." Oh, you could also show up and go, "This is the 9:06 meeting, right? This is the 9:06 meeting? Great. Okay, good. I'm on time. I'm just got here a minute early." Okay. And you're clearly owning up that you're late. You're completely owning that you're late. And that, to me, I think is one of the sign. I just had this happen a couple weeks ago. We were delivering creative to a client in a credit union in Alberta, lovely people. And I said to one of the writers who was working on something, I said, you need to change this line. I think you need to say this. This is the line you need to say. And I kept harping on it. And she's like, okay. She completely disagreed with me. But she was great. She said, okay, I'll put it in. We present to the client, of course. And the client hated my line, the line that I said put in there. So now I've got my entire team who knows I've had this conversation with the writer. And so to the client, I said, wait a second. Are you telling me, the chief creative officer and founder of this agency, that the line that I instructed staff to put in that brand narrative, that you're saying you don't like it? How the heck is she now supposed to look me in the face? How is she supposed to be the one to say I was right? You think I need that from my people? And so it was a way of going, you know what? You are right. It was a way of owning the moment to go, hey, sometimes I'm going to be wrong. I'm going to be wrong. And that's totally cool. And it was also a way to prop her up to go, she was actually right. The person who's writing this stuff on a daily basis, she actually had the better thought here. And opposed to trying to deal with it behind the scenes or ignoring it or something, I just completely called it out in front of the client.
I would like that is another great story. And that goes back to what we talked about, the think, do, say, because that is your brand of also, more companies probably need to do this. And I know you've talked about this, that you also have to not assume that, what people at the higher level, that they're experiencing the same things at the front line, what the frontline people are. And I know you do talks about this, and I know we're coming up to the top of there, but I would recommend for anybody listening now, especially anybody in the HR, if you're looking to grow your business, go listen to some of Ron's talks where he, especially in the HR world, where he does really help explain, when you're in a leadership role, you can't always assume that everybody sees the world through your lens. That is, and we had here, we'll go back here. We had someone say, owning it, that's good leadership. And yes, so we have now, Amanda also said there's expertise about the skill set of doing new things. It's a habit, but also a set of skills. Yes, I think they go hand in hand. You have to, have also the knowledge to practice those skills too, because I would say things can be simple, not easy. In fact, I always find the simplest things, even when I'm doing any copy or marketing. We had something when at a recent trade show with 𝑘𝒊𝒕𝒉, and one of the things we had on the trade show booth was we build molds. And everybody commented on that. And it's been probably one of the more successful lines I've had or worked with a client on, is because people walk by and they go, oh yeah, that's what you do. Because sometimes you're at these trade shows and you're like, even I'm walking around going, and you're trying to like, what do they do? And yeah, so that was really clear. We build molds, and
love it.
Can be really good. I want to thank everybody for their comments. I also want to usually I wrap up. Now there's so many more things we can talk about, but I will again, I'm going to drop some information here so Ron Tite is speaker, author, founder, and all around fun guy. And you really should go listen to more of his talks, because
thanks, Gail.
Well, you do, like I said, ever since that first selfie we took together, You have had an impact on my life. So I want to say
Oh,
that.
well, that's very kind of you.
I remember when I reached out to you about even attending Heroic Public Speaking, and I really valued your input and your recommendation. So if they're listening, that's also the reason I went.
I highly recommend HPS for anybody. Yeah, they're Amy and Michael are incredible.
Yeah, that is great. So also and you're Ron Tite everywhere. Ron Tite.
Yeah.
Everywhere. I'm GailNow everywhere except Instagram. I have to be GailNow 1 because someone is sitting on GailNow. I've tried to reach out to Instagram. It's a real pain. It's that little,
Oh yeah.
I don't use Instagram a lot, so it's okay. But now I learned I grab whatever new platform.
Right.
So just to wrap up, can you maybe talk about how you exercise your curious brain? What do you do to just keep that?
I explore. That's what I'm not, for example, things like TikTok are great for that, where it's like exploring new speakers, exploring new content, exploring new thoughts. And I think we live in such a programmed, scheduled, algorithmic world. Sometimes I'm going to go to YouTube and check out a bunch of shit. I'm going to look at some random stuff, and I'm going to stumble upon some stuff that maybe is outside of my feed a little bit. And explore new things, because we can just all follow the same people and read the same stuff over and over and over again. So I just force myself to get out of the box I've created.
That is great. Thank you. You are definitely one of my fellow curiosity seekers, and definitely poster child for sign up, suit up, and show up, because you do all of those things so well. And it really aligns with the Think, Do, Say as well. And I'm going to have you go in the green room. If you could stay for just a minute, I'm just going to do my wrap up, and then.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Ron. Thanks, Gail.
Okay. Whew. Well, thanks, everyone. I didn't get to all the comments. I see there was some great comments today, and I want to thank everybody for showing up and hearing Ron. And I really do encourage you to check out him on all social media platforms. And anyone that's looking to book a speaker, if you don't want to book myself, you can also book Ron. And Ron is at a little different price point, but definitely someone you would want to check out and maybe pass along to your HR department as well, or anybody that's doing event planning to consider bringing Ron in. I've heard him a few times. And one of the things I have to say, what I love about him when I talk about consistency when it comes to marketing, Ron is consistent. Whenever I've heard him speak, basically he only gets better. And he has a couple of stories. We unfortunately couldn't get to all of those today, but he tells a great story. And that is really the importance of storytelling when it comes to sharing information about your brand. And I think we had a very meta show today in terms of Ron was sharing some stories that really tell you a lot about who he is. I hope more people in manufacturing will learn from this and start saying, how can you share your stories? How can you maybe go out on a limb, get outside your comfort zone? That's the growth zone. And maybe even if not be the red M&M in the bowl of green, maybe you can be, I don't know, the yellow. Start off somewhere and just show up. And I look forward to the next few weeks. I am getting ready for an upcoming talk as well. So I'm sure you'll be hearing more about that with the Pacific Northwest Aerospace Alliance. Okay, everyone. Thank you for showing up today. I'm going to now, let's put this back up, and I will sign off and see you next week.